2020. A story from Richard Hampton's Gallery of Tragedies. Narrated by Claire Coyle. In all my years working for Dr. Ronnie Mason, 15 and counting, I had yet to see anyone like Peter Clark. For starters, Peter was short, 5'3" at best, and could certainly be shorter than that. Poor guy had to weigh less than my sweet little granddaughter Trinity, which would peg him under 85 pounds, a weight my daughter Shelley insisted was normal for a 5th grade girl. I'd always retort, maybe an anorexic 5th grader, which would always produce a glare from Shelley. She told anyone who'd listen how I had stuffed her silly when she was a little kid, as if I were the witch from Hansel and Gretel. She complained about having to work extra hard in high school and college to lose her baby fat in order to have even a remote chance at finding a special someone. She was now paranoid I'd do the same to her Trinity. She was probably right. I would love to get Trinity out of that pink ballet leotard and into a loose set of overalls and jeans with no belt required, but I knew that conversation was dead on arrival. Anyways, Peter made my granddaughter look overweight. For a man who was pushing late 20s, I couldn't fathom how he could be so thin. At least 2/3 of all women could probably take him in a fight. I bet he knew that, too. How could a self-respecting man in 2021 walk out and about every day looking like a little skeleton? Didn't he want to find a woman? Where were his parents? But it was his eyes that disturbed me the most. They were glassy, fake, barely there. Eyes that looked disengaged the second he started a conversation. It was as if his eyes were the backdrop of a high school production of Wizard of Oz. Sure, the cardboard cutout of the yellow brick road created the illusion of a world beyond the bricks, but there was really nothing beyond that trick. That was Peter's eyes. Vacant, distracted, and only an illusion of something that was not there. Fortunately for Peter, eyes were our specialty. I had worked behind the same desk, in the same building, doing the same task I loved for 15 years for Dr. Ronnie Mason. I'm sure people thought my job was simple, or that it wasn't a real job. I saw the looks on some of the girls' faces from Bible study when I talked about it. Pity. Oh, poor Jerry, sitting behind that desk all day. Oh, Jerry, how do you put up with all the monotony? Why do you even put up with that place anymore? Doesn't your husband work? They felt sorry for me. Working behind a desk, checking patients in, ordering prescriptions, handling billing and invoicing, taking the same 15-minute lunch at the same Subway every day, prepping the Snellen chart, cleaning the tonometer, and working through the inevitable hiccups with clients didn't seem enjoyable to them. Hell, I could see where they were coming from. It was monotonous. It was boring at times. But this job made my life. This job gave me the flexibility to take the boys to soccer practice after school. I never missed a game. All throughout Shelley's numerous changing interests, violin, art, music, photography, cheerleading, the debate team, this job was flexible enough for me to be with her every step of the way. The same was true for my relationship with Trinity now. Apart from the flexibility, it was a stable 9 to 5 that never changed. Once I mastered the job years ago, I reveled in my own ability to outpace my coworkers, who at most would last 3 to 5 years. I loved that I was able to know my duties every single day. That predictability was nice. But most of all, the biggest reason I would work this job until I died at my desk was because of the moment. You've seen the moment. I was never good at pulling up the internet on my computer. I have so much trouble with those darn things, but Trinity has looked up the moment for me. It's usually babies or grown adults who have had extremely limited vision for their entire life and for the first time put on glasses. That's the moment. Finally, after all this time, they can see clearly. The videos on the internet are the more extreme cases, of course. That's why they are being filmed. The person putting on the glasses and seeing clearly for the first time usually bursts into tears and hugs everyone around them. People clap. It's such a happy thing. If I ever figure out how to log into my Facebook, we'll need Trinity's help with that too. I want to share those videos far and wide if I can. The moments at my job aren't as flashy as the moments on the internet because some people only have minor vision problems. But even then, seeing someone right in front of me put on those glasses for the very first time and gasp in amazement at the miracle of Dr. Ronnie Mason's work is breathtaking. It recharges me. It gives me the will to continue the work. My goal every day is to work as hard as possible so that everyone who comes through those doors will have the eyesight they have always dreamed of. Everyone deserves that moment, and until my dying day, I'd work to give them that moment. And I felt this for Peter, just like everyone. But Peter wasn't like everyone. I'll never forget the first time he came in. I saw him through the glass of the door before he even stepped foot inside. His lips had been moving fast, but as soon as he saw me, he stopped talking, and those vacant eyes darted far away from me. That was the first odd part of my experience with him. Had he been talking to himself? "Hi! Welcome to Dr. Mason's," I beamed up at him from behind the desk. Peter looked down at me and cocked his head slightly, as if he were one of those tiny dogs my sister Annie and her grandkids had. "Hi," he said, hesitant and lifeless. "Do you have an appointment?" I asked. "Yes, it is for 3. "Good. What's your name and email?" "Peter Clark. pclark2016 @gmail.com. "Thank you, Peter. Please take a seat in the reception area, and I will let you know when we can get you all situated." He gave me a faint nod in response and cowered over to the waiting area. This day was a Friday. I remember that detail because Fridays were usually the slowest day of the week, and Peter was pretty much alone in the waiting room, besides our tech Miranda and patient Amy Kearns, such a sweet lady, and her infant son, Patrick. The waiting room was essentially 5 or 6 old wooden chairs side by side on a single long mat of carpet extending across the wood floor. The carpet stopped right in the center of the room, and it was surrounded on all sides by 3 walls, each decorated with rows and rows of glasses frames. Canvas prints of attractive white men and women hung on each wall, each model staring off into space, trying to appear intellectual, with cutesy optometry text underneath, like, "I see you need a new pair," or "You're all I need." There was a door in the middle wall, 10 feet from the carpet, which led to the 3 offices we techs and Dr. Mason alternated using. If you turned around from those offices and made your way back through the empty middle of the waiting area, past the glasses shelves on the right and left, and past the wooden chairs and 3-month-old Time and traditional home magazines that adorned the room, you'd find my desk. It was at this desk I realized something was off about Peter. After about a 15-minute or so wait, I called his name. Peter stood up and dazedly walked over to me. For a second, the thought that he was on drugs or he was hungover crossed my mind. You never knew nowadays what the kids were up to. Back in the day, young people were more respectable. They'd never think to walk into a public establishment under the influence. But nowadays, you could never be certain. I brushed the thought aside as I led Peter into the exam room to the right. Okay, Peter, I am going to run 2 little tests ahead of your appointment with Dr. Mason. There are 2 machines I'm going to have you hop on, okay? The first one is called a tonometer. I motioned for the young man to take a seat on the white stool in front of him and place his chin on the chin rest. His face was so gaunt and bony that his chin didn't seem to fully rest flush. He looked at me hesitantly, and I quickly maneuvered over to the other side of the tonometer and pressed the remote control so the machine would lower and set his chin at a more comfortable position. So what this machine is doing is basically measuring the pressure of the fluid in your eyes. Your optic nerve is very sensitive, and it's important to make sure the pressure is not too much. A little bit of pressure is normal, but anything over a certain amount puts you at risk for glaucoma. Glaucoma. I think my grandma has that, Peter whispered. Us elderly ladies tend to suffer from it most, I laughed. Thank goodness it hasn't come to me yet, but it's entirely possible. Don't get old. He didn't react to my joke. He didn't loosen up at all. Again, I thought it was strange, but I went right back to my tonometer spiel. I felt it best to describe to my patients the purpose of these machines and the constant rituals performed at the eye doctor. Too many assistants don't go into the nitty-gritty of why we do what we do. It's a disservice to our patients. What I'm going to have you do is look into the tonometer at the little green light. Do you see it? Yes. Good. We are going to start with the right eye, and then we will do the left after. This tonometer is going to blow a light puff of air into your eye. We used to have to actually touch the eye with a tonometer, and that required numbing and whatnot, but now that the technology is getting so advanced, we've taken the discomfort level down to a minor puff. Your eyes are going to water a little bit, but it's only for a brief second. Are you ready? Yes. Okay. Look into the green. The tonometer whirred for 10 seconds or so, and when it located the exact spot of Peter's eye it needed to hit, the machine sent out a burst of air with a light puff. Peter jolted slightly, all the patients do, but he relaxed in an instant. I clicked the remote and the tonometer whirred until it maneuvered over to his other eye. Another 15 seconds of looking into the green light, another bit of whirring and clicking, another puff, and another recoil from Peter, and then he was done. Excellent. Dr. Mason will take another look at these when he meets with you, but we should be golden. Next to the tonometer is another machine we like to test each visit called the autorefractor. The autorefractor is similar to the tonometer in that you also need to place your chin on the rest and look into the machine for a couple of seconds. This machine is used to measure the refractive error of your eyes. That's just a fancy way of saying how the light is reflected through your eyes. I'm going to put an image up in the auto refractor and have you look at it with each eye. All you need to do is focus on the image, and the machine will move the picture in and out of focus in order to get a proper reading. Sound good?
Yes.
Peter lowered his chin onto the rest and looked into the auto refractor.
Wow!
I jumped. This was the first moment since I'd met him that his voice had any inflection whatsoever. Every word till then was a whisper. This was actually loud.
Wow,
he repeated, pressing his eye deeper into the viewer.
What picture is that?
What picture? It's a farm.
I know it's a farm,
he scoffed, not looking up from the machine.
What picture exactly, though? It's a beautiful picture. I want the name.
That struck me as very strange. No patient in all my years with Dr. Mason had ever requested the name of the silly farm picture inside the auto refractor. It was just a farm. I had no idea what exactly it was called. The image was of a farm, a bright red farmhouse off in the distance. And leading your eyes to that farm, in the exact center of the image were 2 white picket fences on either side of a gray dirt road. Vibrant green grassy hills surrounded the white picket fence and the red barn like a sea. It was a simple and common image in optometry offices all across the country. I don't think it has a name. There are these pictures everywhere. Some are hot air balloons, some are pinwheels, and some places have this farm picture. Do you live on a farm, Peter? He ignored me, switching to his left eye now to look at the farm.
Wow, I really like this picture, miss.
It's a good picture, I smiled. But you got to focus on the middle, right on the barn, so I can get a good reading real quick.
But there is so much to look at. Look at all that green.
He was pressing his face so hard into the lens I felt an immediate urge to grab his shoulders and pull him back. It looked like it had to hurt. For a second, I even reached out to tap him on the shoulder, but I hesitated. Peter, can you focus on the middle part for just a second?
Yes, wow. Do you know how I can find this picture?
Do you have a home computer with access to the internet?
No. I have a phone, though.
Good. I think you can find it on a phone. Just go on Google and search for auto refractor farm or something like that. I think that would do the trick. Now, please, focus on the...
I think I see someone.
I jumped. Peter was on his feet now, his face off the lens, pointing wildly at the machine in front of him, his mouth agape. Peter,
There's a man. There's a man at that farm.
Peter, there isn't a man in...
Just look,
he said, practically leaping over the stool as he reached out for my hand.
Just look. Trust me, look. That's amazing. He wasn't there before. He wasn't.
Reluctantly, I sighed and made my way to the other side of the table to the viewfinder. I figured I'd at least humor him. I'd say I didn't see anything and it must be a smudge or something, and then we'd move on from this bizarre side plot.
Look, right at the center of the barn.
I pressed my face to the lens. The same familiar picture was before me. Solid, grainy black space surrounded the outer edges of the image. The kind of black you'd see in the microscope your parents got when you were a child. Offsetting the black, in the center of the lens, was the most vibrant green you could imagine. Rolling grassy hills detailed down to the single blade and extending far beyond the house in the foreground. On either side of the dirt road of the farm were 2 long white picket fences, leading my eyes to the red and white barn in the center. For how long I had worked here, it had been a long time since I had been on this side of the image, and one thing Peter was right about was the beauty of it. It looked like an image as crisp as something out of a Pixar movie. I placed my hand on top of the auto-refractor and maneuvered it until I found the power button. I pressed it. The machine whirred to life, and the crisp green image became even crisper as the machine measured the reflection in my eyes. The image became so clear, I could see the rivets in the wood of the barn door, the slight mounds of dirt right in front, and a small bottle of milk, presumably from a cow owned by the auto-refractor farmer. But no man. "Nope, I don't see a man, Peter," I said, looking up from the lens and back at him. "Must have been a smudge is all. Now, please, return to the he was there. I saw him. I know I did. Here." He shoved me aside. Yet another sign of my hypothesis on the youth and their manners was correct, and pressed his face back to the auto-refractor. I made my way again to the other side of the desk at a snail's pace, my brain completely frozen in indecision as I contemplated the odd situation developing before me. It was a silly farm. A silly, tiny, insignificant little farm that meant nothing. It was an image chosen by some optometry school decades ago that was never replaced or refined because it didn't need to be. It served its purpose just like its companion, the hot air balloon or the pinwheel. It calculated the reflection in your eyes. That was it. No hidden meaning, nothing. What was his deal? "There!" he shouted, his voice loud enough to carry into the waiting room. "He's right there! He's smiling at me, like a sinister smile, like he's bad. He's standing right in front, next to the barn door. He's really pale and bald and smiling. How can you not see him?" "I didn't see anyone, Peter. Now, please, this is taking an awful amount of time, and Dr. Mason is very busy. I need to finish this test so we can get you prepped for Dr. Mason. Please, just focus on the image for just a moment, and then we can move on." Peter crossed his arms and shook his head. He was insistent. He was untamable. I knew right then and there he wasn't budging unless I went for the big guns. I cut him off right before he was about to protest. "Okay, Peter, listen. I can tell you are really agitated about this image. If you can't get past it, I'm afraid you are going to have to come back another day. That means all this waiting for your appointment, setting it up, driving here, and all of our time has been wasted. Is that what you want? Do you really want to miss out on this appointment because of the picture in the auto-refractor?" I was in full disappointed grandma mode now. My hands on my hips, my lips pursed, and my head cocked in a don't-be-stupid angle that worked so well with Trinity when I babysat. To my surprise, he agreed. "Yes, that's fine. I really don't think I can continue today anyway. I need to get to the bottom of this picture. Can you write down on a notepad or something the name of this so I can look it up when I get home?" "You're joking." "No," he said, shaking his head. "I'm not joking. I see a man there. This is the most beautiful picture I've ever seen, and I see a man standing there smiling at me. I have to get to the bottom of it. I'll reschedule my appointment, I promise." "Peter, this is ridiculous," I said, my hands leaving my hips, and I raised them in the air as he turned to leave. "You can't be serious." "Could you write it down?" he asked, ignoring my incredulity. He was holding the notepad he had picked up from my desk outside the exam room. "Like I said, it doesn't have a name." "Then give me something." I shook my head repeatedly, just beyond frustrated, and wrote, "Auto-refractor image, farm scene in Green Valley." "Thanks," he said, snatching the paper out of my hand before I had even finished writing. "And what's your name?" "Jerry. Jerry Manning. But I don't see how that is really that relevant." "And your email, Jerry?" Peter asked, now writing on the pad himself with a mechanical pencil he had pulled out of his pocket. gmanning@masonoptometry.com. "Thank you. I'll reschedule my appointment, I promise. Thanks for all your help today." And with that, the most peculiar patient who had ever stepped foot into Dr. Ronnie Mason's Crystal City optometry clinic left the office as quickly as he had entered, leaving me confused and alone with the autorefractor. As weird as the day was with Peter, I did my best to brush it aside and move on, like the bizarre experience hadn't happened. Several more patients came and left throughout the day, and by 5 p.m., I was over the strange case of the man in the autorefractor. My afternoon routine is always the same. I pack up at 4:45 after doing my rounds, saying goodbye to the other techs and Dr. Mason, if he wasn't in a room finishing up with the final patient of the day. Then I jump in my green 2009 Grand Caravan and drive to pick up Trinity from her after-school program. Shelley was a single mother, thanks to the human bag of trash that was her ex. I still relish how right I was about him, and she relied on me to help her with Trinity in the afternoons. I didn't mind one bit. This was what grandmas were for. And I delighted in spending time with my granddaughter. After arriving at the school at around 5:15, I drive Trinity back to my house, and she breaks out the coloring books or the Play-Doh. Shelley swings by between 6 and 6:15 p.m., and we say our goodbyes. Harold gets home from work around 7, and I have dinner ready on the stove. In my mind, the tragedy that modern feminism wrought upon the world is the belief that cooking for your husband, keeping a spotless kitchen, taking pride in turning ingredients, worthless on their own, into a fantastic meal was all something to look down on and be ashamed of. Women nowadays were told they needed to be career-driven. They needed to beat the men at their own game. They needed to reject all outdated models of living from the past and embrace the rat race of the future. It was all a bunch of hooey. I loved cooking for Harold. I loved being in my kitchen. I loved seeing the smile that came across his face when he opened the door to the house and stepped inside to smell his favorite ravioli cooking on the stove and ready for him in minutes. I loved making a house a home, something a man would never come close to doing. Women nowadays were rejecting so much of the past, they were making themselves miserable in the present. This was the perfect example. Sometimes fighting the patriarchy had to wait because oh my, were most men terrible cooks. Harold arrived at 7, right as I removed his favorite green bean casserole from the oven. I set it out in front of him and he ate ravenously, seemingly unaware I was even there. They worked him to death sometimes. Then the rest of the evening was mostly unremarkable. Just the way I liked it. Harold had a little dessert, my trademark red velvet cupcakes. We both showered one after the other. We brushed our teeth, read our respective books. Mine, a biography of Julia Child, his, a Tom Clancy novel, And then it was lights out the second the clock struck 10. I was only asleep for 5 minutes or so when the phone rang. Harold hated that we had a phone in the bedroom. It never rang. I made sure it never rang because only one person had the number, and she knew to only call if there was an emergency. Not an "I cut my finger slicing onions so you can watch Trinity" emergency or "I need a sitter for the date I have tomorrow" emergency. This phone was for an "I was just in a car accident and might die" or a nuclear bomb dropped on the city emergency. Shelley knew it. She knew never to call unless something terrible had happened. In the 5 years we had that phone in our room, it never rang. Not once. That's the way I liked it. It meant Shelley was safe and all was right in the world. But at 10:05, it rang.
"Shit, Jerry!"
I remember Harold exclaiming, bolting upright and punching my shoulder in surprise.
"The phone! The damn phone is ringing!"
My stomach dropped. My body was ice in seconds, my skin crawling with sweat and my face numb. My mind went to the worst-case scenario immediately. Trinity had been killed in a car accident, or Jacob had showed up at their house a drunken mess as usual and had beaten Shelley in front of Trinity. She'd never call unless it was something like that. "I got it," I said, wide awake as I reached for the receiver. "Probably just a mistake, honey."
"Isn't this an emergency phone?"
Harold asked, the irritation in his voice from just moments ago now replaced with the same quivering trepidation as mine. I held the phone to my ear. "Shelley?"
"Hello."
"Hello? Shelley, is that you?"
"No."
"No?" What the heck? Only Shelley had this phone number. What was this, a telemarketer? At 10 p.m.?
"It's not Shelley?"
Harold asked. I waved him off. "Who is this, then? Why are you calling?"
"This is Peter. Do you remember me, Mrs. Manning?"
My blood began to run hot again. Peter, the patient with the conversational ability of a corpse, and a temperament that would make an asylum patient blush, was calling my emergency phone at 10 p.m.? I didn't even give him my number.
"Peter? Peter Clark from Dr. Mason's. Peter."
"Peter? Peter Clark from Dr. Mason's? Peter, why are you calling me at 10 at night?"
I'm sorry. Did I wake you?"
I couldn't tell which was stranger, that Peter was actually apologizing about something, or that he didn't find it weird that an old woman like me, who started her days at 5 a.m., would be in bed by 10. "Peter, I'm sorry, but whatever you have to say will have to wait until morning. If you call Dr. Mason's and leave a message, I can get back to you in a timely manner. Now, please, delete this number. This is a personal number, and I don't know how you got it."
"You gave it to me."
I did not," I stammered again, waving off Harold, who was practically pulling my arm out of my socket, trying to get some information on what the heck this call was even about.
"Yes, you did."
"Please don't call this number again. The only number you should be calling is Dr. Mason's office number. I can give it to you tomorrow. Now, good night."
Wait. Mrs. Manning, please, wait.
Peter, it can't wait until morning. I promise. This will be quick, please. I need to tell you this.
What's going on? Harold mouthed to me. Who's Peter?
I waved him off a third time and squeezed the phone even tighter than I already was as I said through gritted teeth, "Okay, Peter, what do you have to tell me?"
Okay,
he said, the desperation in his voice finally fading.
I want to tell you how thankful I am for you letting me see that beautiful picture.
Oh my gosh.
It's the most beautiful picture I've ever seen, and right as I got home, I knew I had to buy my own autorefractor.
He's talking about that darn farm picture again.
I talked my uncle into it, and we drove to that medical store over on Ambrose and bought one. He helped me set it up and everything this evening, but when I turned it on, I didn't see the farm. It was a picture of a hot air balloon, not a farm like the autorefractor in Dr. Mason's office.
Well, yes, Peter. Some of the autorefractors have different pictures in them. It's not always a farm like the one in Dr. Mason's office.
Well, I want to see that one you see. It got me thinking that, well, even if I do manage to find the autorefractor I need that has the farm picture and not the hot air balloon picture, it still might not be right because it's not that picture. Does that make sense? I want to see that exact same picture that is in Dr. Mason's autorefractor. I don't think any other picture will work.
Peter, I said, all the pleasant customer service voice I had perfected over my many decades now completely vanished. This does not make any sense. I'm sorry, but it is just a picture. A meaningless, nothing picture that is used for a simple test, and that is that. Whether it be a pinwheel, a farm, or a hot air balloon, it makes no difference whatsoever. When we get the reading we need, that is that. Please do not call this number anymore. Good night. I raised the phone from my ear and moved to place it back on its stand and end the call, but I wasn't quick enough. I heard Peter's last words on the other side of the line.
But Jerry, the man in the picture told me to call you.
Morning, Jerry. Say, you look a little tired today.
Dr. Ronnie Mason was in the process of hanging his red and brown Ralph Lauren delicately on the coat rack when he turned and gave me his look. I knew that look. The look was iconic on him. A quizzical look that broke the never-ending smile, eager personality, and rich and warm facade that always surrounded the 6-foot-tall, broad-shouldered, Clark Kent-esque caricature that was Dr. Ronnie Mason. He only made that look when he was legitimately caught off guard. I am. Bit of a weird night.
Weird night?
He asked, his trademark Midwest, nice, customer is always right mindset already getting right back on track.
What happened, Jerry? Is there anything I can do?
What do you know about Peter Clark?
Peter? He's a new patient, right? I know he had an appointment yesterday, but he ended up leaving before seeing me.
Yep, that's the Peter I'm talking about.
Well, he's a nice enough kid, kinda quiet. I think I bumped into him in the parking lot on my way into the office yesterday, and he said he went to school at Southeast Missouri, like me. Small world. But I didn't get to talk to him much after that since he skipped out on us. Why was that, by the way?
He couldn't get over the picture in the autorefractor. The farm picture.
Couldn't get over it? What do you mean?
He was obsessed with it. He thought it was the coolest picture he'd ever seen and wanted to know all kinds of things about it,
like who made it, what the picture was called, so on and so forth. And the weirdest part, he said he saw a man in the picture. Dr. Mason's eyebrows rose so high, I thought his glasses were going to fall off the bridge of his nose. That is quite something. Weird, really weird. You didn't feel unsafe, did you, Jerry? Because if you felt unsafe or weirded out or uncomfortable, that is not a work environment I want you working in. No, Dr. Mason, I didn't feel unsafe. I just brushed it off as nothing. But it was weird, that was for sure. He was so focused on it, I had to turn him away from meeting with you. I gave him my email, foolishly thinking it would get him off my back, but then somehow got my number, and he called me at 10 last night. He did? Yep. Asking again about the picture. He went out and bought an auto-refractor for himself just so he could try and see the picture. But since it wasn't the exact picture we have, he called to tell me about how he needed to see ours and no others. The picture in his was the hot air balloon one. Dr. Mason looked stumped. He was scratching his chin, a gesture that bore an uncanny resemblance to the numerous white models advertising our glasses on the wall. Maybe he's just an aspiring optometrist curious about the tools of the trade, he shrugged. I'll admit, it is kind of a strange thing to fixate on, but the Lord of Inspiration works in mysterious ways. Next time he's in, let me know and I'll pick his brain a little. I'm always open to molding young minds. And just like that, my happy-go-lucky golden retriever of a boss smiled his way back to his office. It was easy being Dr. Mason. Everything had a happy and easy explanation, and at the end of the day, to the rich, attractive, and hyper-intelligent doctor, the world was his oyster. I wish I were optimistic. Peter was trouble. How much trouble, I did not know, but I made a mental note right then and there to be careful around the strange young man. Maybe I was just overreacting. It certainly wouldn't be the first time, but the late-night phone call, the fixation on that stupid simple image, and his insistence on a figure in the photo that wasn't actually there made me uneasy. Something was wrong. When I saw the patient's schedule the following day, I actually cursed out loud. I never curse. Never. I was known around the office as the lady who never curses. Some of the ladies even tried to trick me once, just to see if they could get me to curse without meaning to. I think it was the S word they wanted me to say. "Jerry, what begins with S and rhymes with fit?" they giggled. No, girls. I've been around the block far too long to fall for that, I remember saying to the chorus of their laughter. But the day I saw that schedule, I actually did curse. Shit. Big, bold, and clearly labeled on my work calendar at noon that day, Peter Clark, 12 p.m. appointment. I had to deal with this little freak again. I pushed my frustration aside and came up with a game plan. I needed to get him in to see Dr. Mason ASAP. Skip the tonometer, skip the auto-refractor, skip the chit-chat. In and out. Quick. Dr. Mason was more authoritative than I. He was someone you didn't want to disappoint, and maybe he'd have that effect on Peter as well. 12 o'clock arrived too soon.
Hi, Mrs. Manning. Peter beamed, his demeanor now the polar opposite from his first appointment. I'm ready when you are. Hi, Peter, I said, trying to hide my anxiety. I told Dr. Mason ahead of time you were coming in today, and he is over in room 4. He will take you right away. I placed my hands on the desk, pushed myself to my feet, and made my way around the desk toward Peter. So far, so good. He still wore that dumb smile. I could see it out of the corner of my eye as I made my way past him, and for a moment, I thought I might be in the clear. Sorry I called you, Mrs. Manning. I turned to see Peter with his head down, crestfallen, like a child feigning shame to a scolding parent. It's okay, Peter, life goes on. If you have any questions about our machines or processes in the future, talk to Dr. Mason about them in your appointment with him. He's the expert on this stuff, and he'd be more than happy to fill you in. I will, he said. The gray man was so insistent I talked to you, and I didn't want to disappoint him. Jesus. Excuse me? I whispered. He told me you were so special, that he needed you. He said you had a gift of caring that not many people do. I wanted to be sick. In all my years here, I had never dealt with a patient like this. He was so clearly mentally ill. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of even acknowledging the craziness he just told me. I led the young man toward the hall and to the left for room 4. I knocked. Come in. I'll leave you to it, I smiled, holding the door open for Peter as he walked inside. I closed it quickly, but not quick enough to catch Dr. Mason's eyes. His head was cocked, his eyebrows raised. I knew exactly what those eyes meant. So this is the Looney Tune? I practically sprinted to my desk and jumped into my seat, as if the desk was a force field between myself and any further interaction with Peter Clark. And then I waited. A couple more patients filed in, normal patients, of course, and I checked them in, filed their payments, and distributed their contacts to them, as I always used to. But today I was on autopilot, completely on edge and unfocused until Peter left. I felt like a bad person with how uneasy he made me. Maybe he had a form of autism or a disability or was just socially awkward from a repressed household of overbearing parents. It surely was that easy of an explanation for why Peter was so obsessed with the picture in the autorefractor, and that made me feel like a bad person for not giving him the benefit of the doubt. I went to church each Sunday like the Lord intended all of his people do, and I was skeptical he would be proud of my behavior these past couple days. Just the other day, Father had referenced Romans 2:1 in his homily. You therefore have no excuses, you who pass judgment on someone else, for at whatever point you judge another, you are condemning yourself, because you who pass judgment do the same things. I needed to consider that I was the one in the wrong and not Peter, but I couldn't help how I felt. How much of my fear and anxiety about this patient was my own selfish, judging ways, and how much of this was my brain, God's most complex creation, tasked specifically with logic, telling me to run for the hills from this patient because I had good reason to. The question bothered me for the remainder of the 45 minutes between when I left Peter with Dr. Mason and when he returned. He opened the door to room 4 and gave one last wave into the room at Dr. Mason, and then made his way to me.
Peter Clark was now the same glum, mumbling, and downtrodden Eeyore I'd met the day of his first appointment.
"How did it go?"
I asked, straining a smile as he reached the desk.
"Fine. Dr. Mason seems nice. I don't have to get glasses yet, which is good. But he said I might need to next year."
"Well, let's think on the bright side. Maybe a year from now, your eyes will improve. You are still a young man with some life left in you. Not like us old geezers." He didn't laugh. I gritted my teeth and pulled up his appointment card on the computer. "Okay, so copay is going to be $50 after we apply your insurance. Cash or check?" Peter's eyebrows rose.
"What?"
"Cash or check?" I repeated. "How would you like to pay for your copay today?"
"Wait," Peter said, shaking his head and placing his hands on the front of his desk.
"That's it?" "That's it. You are all done after you
No autorefractor today?"
"Nope, no."
"Why not?" Peter exclaimed. I thought we had to do that each time I came in."
"Well, since your first appointment was so recent and you weren't able to talk with Dr. Mason the first time, we didn't need to have you use the autorefractor or the tonometer today."
"But I want to, Mrs. Manning."
"Well, I'm sorry, Peter, but we will have to do it next time. Now, please, cash or check, and I'll send you on your way. I'm sure you are a very busy young man, and I don't want to keep you past your time."
"Mrs. Manning,"
Peter said, his hands inches closer to mine on the desk, his eyes now glued to mine.
"I have nothing to do right now. I have all the time in the world. Hell, everyone here is gone. There aren't any patients here right now. Where's the harm? Just one little peek, please. I just can't let it go. I know I seem crazy, but the picture is so beautiful, and I saw a man in the picture. I know I did. I tried what you said to get my own, and it was a stupid hot air balloon picture. No man. It wasn't what I needed. I need this, please."
He had that pleading look on his face Trinity would give me when I took her out to the movies while her mom was working. "Please, Grandma, one more bowl of popcorn. Mom will never know. Can I have some Skittles too? Pretty, please?" Really, the only difference between my toddler granddaughter and this grown man pleading with me was the threat. The worst that would happen if I insisted to my granddaughter that we had food at home, too many Skittles would give her cavities and the candy was too expensive anyways, was that she'd just cross her arms and pout. If, in turn, I told Peter that no, he could not look into the autofractor and see that farm and the gray man he talked about. He wouldn't pout. He wouldn't cry a little. He could hurt me. "And Peter, let me get Dr. Mason. He might do a better job of explaining our uses of this machine than I do, because I think I'm not being an effective communicator." Peter did not protest. He only stood with his arms crossed. I could tell he was losing patience with me and the trust he had that I was some dutiful service industry worker who would adhere 100% to the customer is always right mentality was fading fast. "Dr. Mason," I called room 4, "Peter has a question for you." Dr. Mason strode out of the room and made his way through the hall into the lobby and toward the desk, that trademark smile on his face. Man, how I wished he was unmarried and single. Shelley would never have another worry in the world.
whether it be in the bedroom or in the pocketbook. The man was a catch in every sense of the word.
"Yes, Peter?" Dr. Mason asked. "How can I help you?"
I could see the panic in Peter's eyes. He was intimidated by Dr. Mason. The doctor wasn't some lowly old granny working at the front desk. He was a towering intellectual with a bursting bank account and a smile that could bring world peace. Peter wouldn't be able to budge Dr. Mason. I was sure of it.
"Doctor, Mrs. Manning showed me the autorefractor the other day before my appointment. I saw a man on that farm. He was bald and gray and smiled at me. Like he knew me. It's bothered me ever since, and I just have to see that picture again. It's so beautiful, so green, so vibrant. I need to. Mrs. Manning says that I can't see it today because I looked into it so recently, but I just gotta see it. I thought I'd get to at the end of today's appointment, but she says I can't. Can you tell her I can?"
Can you tell her I can? So childish. That's what made me think I was being a bad Christian and judging him too harshly. He was a grown man talking to Dr. Mason like a little child begging for his toy back. It was totally bizarre. Maybe there was something wrong with him that was completely out of his control.
"Peter, we have some pretty established rules here. We aren't just making them up willy-nilly. These are tried and true rules that have been tested and worked on for decades, long before you or I were even born. The fact of the matter, and what I believe Jerry is saying, is there is just no reason for you to take the autorefractor test or tonometer test again. The chances of your eyes changing from 2 days ago to today are microscopic. It's a waste of our time and a waste of your hard-earned money. These machines aren't cheap. But listen, buddy, in 6 months' time, when your next appointment rolls around, I will be your #1 advocate for another swing down autorefractor lane. Sound good?"
Peter's eye was practically twitching. He looked from me to Dr. Mason and back to me, and then said in the faintest whisper of a concession,
"Yes." "Awesome. Well, you take care, buddy, and I'll see you for that appointment."
Dr. Mason shook Peter's limp and bony hand, winked at me, "See, I took care of it" type of wink, and then made a beeline for room 4. Peter stood at the desk for several seconds, looking down at the table and not saying a word. I sat triumphant. So triumphant, in fact, it was hard to hide the smile on my face. "That's right, you little weirdo. Try telling Dr. Mason you want to get your little hands all over his autorefractor one more time, and he'll throw you out. Not so easy trying to talk your way into things now, is it?"
"No."
"What? Excuse me?"
"No," Peter said, looking back up at me. "That doesn't sound good. Dr. Mason doesn't know what I saw. He didn't see my reaction like you did, Mrs. Manning. I'm seeing that picture now."
With that, Peter rapped his knuckles on the desk, pivoted his body, and stomped over to the exam room. I rose from my seat and bolted in front of him with my hand outstretched. "No!" I shouted, the first time I had ever raised my voice at a patient in 15 years. "No, Peter! You heard Dr. Mason and you heard me. You are not getting a look into the autorefractor. It isn't right. It doesn't make any sense, and you need to leave." "No," he simply said. "Then I'll tell Dr. Mason," I said, "and he'll kick you out. You won't be able to come back here. You'll have to find a new eye doctor."
I'm looking at that picture.
You really wouldn't try and stop me, Jerry, would you? Peter advanced until he was right against my hand, which was blocking him from the door. He reached into his pocket and pulled out what looked like a red Swiss Army knife. He flicked the side of it. I could now see the distorted and dim reflection of my own horrified face on the side of the 6-inch long knife. Peter Clark was threatening to stab me. "Peter," I whispered, slowly backing away from the man, my hand down now. "You can't. I can do whatever I want, Jerry. I want to see that picture. Step aside so I can see it." I did as I was told. Peter pushed me aside and disappeared behind the curtain of the room. I followed him in, grabbed the control, and the machine whirred to life for his viewing pleasure. My skin crawled. I was pale. My voice was but a whisper. Some words couldn't even come out. My mind was fixed on my own reflection in his blade, a blade so sharp, one slice from the psychopath would cut through my neck like it was nothing more than tracing paper. I'd bleed out from my jugular before Dr. Mason could say astigmatism. Peter had his face pressed right up against the machine, both of his hands on either side of it, as if he were trying to jam the viewfinder as deep as possible into his eye sockets so the image would last longer in his mind. Rank body odor filled the room, either from me, because of the fear now cloaking my every move, or, more likely, from the boy in front of me, sweating like a puberty-ridden kid seeing porn for the first time. "Oh my God," he whispered over and over again. "I can see him again. He's smiling at me. He's motioning for me. He wants me." My eyes darted to the doorway. Could I make it around the desk and back into the lobby before he could peel his eye sockets away from the massive indentations the viewfinder surely made in his skull? Was there enough time to fling the door open, jump to the other side, slam it shut, and call for Dr. Mason to help me hold it closed? Peter was a weakling. He wouldn't be able to push the door an inch if Dr. Mason was on the other side. Or would Peter's vice-like grip on the knife be too powerful to overcome? All he'd have to do is jerk his hand to the right as I ran past, and he'd slice my belly right open. My blue scrubs would be soaked red by the time I collapsed at Dr. Mason's feet. So I just stood there. I waited like a good little girl, standing above the sickening little gremlin in front of me. At 15 minutes, I started to worry he'd be there for a whole hour. After an hour passed, I worried it would be the whole rest of the day. Surely Dr. Mason would come looking for me and see me in this state. Surely he'd walk right in, see the knife, and call the police. "Jerry," Peter said, "come over here." Peter, come on. Come look." He finally peeled his eyes away from the auto-refractor and looked up at me innocently, as if him holding me at knife point earlier had been nothing more than a figment of my imagination. "Come on, Jerry, take a look." He grabbed my arm, I flinched, and pulled me right in front of the viewfinder. "He wants you to talk to him. He thinks you can be helpful to him. He thinks you have a gift." The picture was the same as I always remembered. That vibrant, rolling green grass on either side of the white picket fence and dusty road leading up to the red and white barn. No gray man in sight. "Isn't it beautiful?" Peter asked. "It is, Peter." I pulled away from the auto-refractor and he grabbed my arm again. "Peter?" "Jerry." He smiled, leering up at me. "Thank you. That's exactly what I needed." And with that, Peter turned and left me standing in the room, shocked, scared, and alone. You're just going to text him? This lunatic, this maniac threatens you, the love of my life, and you are just going to text Mason?
Harold was standing over me in the kitchen with his hands on his hips and his mustache quivering unusually. I hadn't seen him this angry since they canceled Cops on Paramount. Harold, I'm safe now. Okay, it's fine. I'm with you. I know the guns you have under our bed, honey. I'm not worried about that little runt coming here. What I worry about is his next appointment. He's going to come in as many times as he can to see that stupid picture. I know it. I need to get Dr. Mason to drop him as a patient, so yes, I'm texting him.
He threatened you with the knife.
And I'll tell Dr. Mason that. I'm typing it right now.
Call the cops, honey. Arrest his ass. I don't want you going anywhere near that office until he's in jail, Harold insisted.
Once Dr. Mason bars him from coming by, he won't be able to come by.
There aren't any bodyguards there. Just 3 or so secretary ladies like yourself and Mason. He's no squish, that's for sure, but he'll be busy with the patients. It's you on the front lines at that desk. You'll be the first person that little maniac sees.
Read my message, I said, shoving my phone in his face. Dr. Mason, I wanted to flag you some concerning information regarding Peter Clark. As I told you before, he has a particular interest in the farm image in the autorefractor. He says he sees a gray man there. To be clear, there is no person in that image. He refused to leave after you and I both talked to him. Peter barged his way into the exam room and spent a good hour looking at that picture. When I protested, he pulled a short Swiss Army-type knife on me. He clearly has something wrong with him, whether it be a severe form of bipolar disorder, OCD, or some other mood obsession disorder. I am concerned about him coming to the office and request we deny him any more services at Crystal City Optometry Clinic, effective immediately. Thank you. So, I asked, looking up at Harold's bushy, skeptical mustache.
Here, he said, taking the phone from my hands. Let me make one edit.
He put on his reading glasses and started typing, one press of his old arthritis-ridden pointer finger on the screen at a time. He licked his lips, smiled, and handed the phone to me.
Now it's fixed.
Dr. Mason, ban Peter Clark now, or this serves as my 2-week notice. Harold was angry with me the rest of the night, but I brushed it aside. He was right, of course. I probably should have called the cops, or maybe at least called Dr. Mason directly instead of sending him a text. A text didn't make the situation seem as urgent as it actually was, but I was too stubborn. I didn't like bothering anyone after office hours, even though this was clearly a great reason to forgo any old-fashioned manners I had in me. To my surprise, I didn't hear anything from Dr. Mason. No text, no call, nothing. I rarely texted him. The last time was probably that time in 2012 when it snowed more than the county had seen in decades, and there was no way my grand caravan was going to make it down my hill. I brushed it aside. He was probably extremely busy and just missed the text, or he was going to address it with me when I arrived at the office. So I packed my lunch that morning, kissed Harold on his old wrinkled forehead, and made my way to the office. What I saw when I arrived made my skin grow cold. All the lights were off in the office. No assistants in sight, no patients. The closed sign was hanging on the door. The hustle and bustle of mornings at Crystal City Optometry Clinic that I had grown so used to in 15 years was completely missing. Almost everything I could see indicated the office had been abandoned. Almost everything.
Dr. Mason's truck was parked crookedly in front of the building. The driver's side door was open, a cascade of papers and eyewear advertisements on the gravel parking lot. The door to the office was cracked just slightly, and I could see a faint light coming from the patient room. The room with the auto refractor. I gripped my car door and took a deep, deep breath. I felt clammy, dizzy, scared. Dr. Mason was never here before me. He was perfect, neat and tidy, the stereotypical everyman. Why was he here this early? Why was his car parked so haphazardly and his doors still open? I didn't want to go in. I know what I'd find. There was a reason he never responded to my text. There was a reason the closed sign was hanging on the door. And there was a reason the only light in the building was coming from the auto refractor room. Whether it was bravery or stupidity, I do not know, but I found myself walking toward the building. Every nerve in my body was tugging me in the opposite direction, begging and shouting at me to turn around and never step foot inside the office again, but the stupidity was stronger. I pushed the glass door open and stepped into the office. I squinted my eyes to hide the inevitable carnage I was about to see. I knew as soon as I turned the corner and entered that room, I'd find Dr. Mason lying in a pool of his own blood, Peter's Swiss Army knife jammed into his throat, or I'd see the doctor bludgeoned to death with the mangled remains of the tonometer. Or maybe Dr. Mason was still alive, begging a maniacal Peter to spare him. I stopped at my desk, refusing to turn to the left. I took another deep breath, then another. I could smell my own body odor now, every sweat gland expelling every drop it could to escape the scene I was about to witness. My lip quivered. My face was numb. I could still turn around. There was still time. It didn't have to be me who found him, but I did. I turned to face the office. Dr. Mason was crouched on the floor. His back was to me, his bare back, glistening in sweat. He wasn't wearing a shirt. His button-up and glasses were tossed to the floor beside him. He was on his knees, his face pressed against the viewfinder of the auto refractor. "Doctor," I cried, "Dr. Mason!" He didn't respond. He only pushed himself closer to the auto refractor. "Dr. Mason," I repeated. "Sir, are you okay? What's going on?" He grunted and I jumped. His voice was guttural, the voice of a drunk leaving the bar at 3 a.m. "Jerry," he whispered. "Doctor, what is going on?" I said. "The office is closed. There's no one here, and the lights are off, and
I gave everyone the day off," Dr. Mason said, still entirely focused on the auto refractor. "I just can't help it." "What?" He finally turned to me. I nearly shouted. Dr. Mason's eyes were bloodshot red, his face pale and gaunt, the only color the gray of the scraggly 5 o'clock shadow he was growing. He looked like an alcoholic undergoing involuntary withdrawal. "I can't help it," he whispered. "Can't help what, doctor?" I cried. "Listen, let me call someone. What's your wife's number? You look ill, really ill. I can call her or call an ambulance or..." "That picture," he whispered. "That beautiful picture."
My blood ran cold. I took a step back. Dr. Mason ignored me and pressed his face back to the auto refractor.
It wasn't just Peter anymore. I made my way to the exit. I was going to call the police. Something was going on here. Drugs, hallucinogens, occult something. Dr. Mason looked on the doorstep of death. He needed me. I turned the doorknob. It didn't budge. No, I shouted. I turned, pulled, and pushed on the knob, but the door didn't move.
Jerry,
Dr. Mason cried from the room.
Come see this. He wants to talk to you. He wants to so badly.
I couldn't tell if he was laughing or crying anymore. All I could hear were moans and cries emanating from the room, as if he were a toddler begging me to play with him.
Come on,
I screamed, banging my fists against the glass. I'd have to break it. I'd have to break out of my own office building. I made my way to the desk and picked up a stone paperweight. If I heaved it hard enough, the glass would shatter and I'd be free. I passed the room again, another round of animalistic howls coming from Dr. Mason, and I reached the door. I raised the stone high and let out a cry, preparing for the shatter of glass that would mark my escape. I took one last look at the door and dropped the stone. Peter was standing in the doorway, a smile on his face. I screamed. I backpedaled until I was behind my desk, the only shield between me and the demon entering the office. "Help!" I screamed. "Somebody help!"
Jerry, come see this picture,
Dr. Mason screamed in response.
He wants to see you. Oh, how he wants to talk to you.
You should listen to him, Jerry, Peter said. Go on, do it. For me. How? Why?
You stay away from me.
Come on now, Jerry, Peter cooed. You've never believed me, but your boss does. I came back to the office yesterday and begged him to take a look, and it changed his life. He closed the shop and told no one to come in. He's been in that room all night. He can't get enough, and now it's your turn. Why? I cried. Why can't you just let me go? Because he needs you, Jerry, Peter said. He knows you have a gift. You live for this job. You live for the moment people see again for the first time. That's your moment. The moment in your life when all time stops and your eyes water and your heart grows a size. He knows that. And he told me that your moment pales in comparison to his moment. All he wants is for you to take a look, just a peek. And if you see, you will understand why this is the true moment you need to share with everyone. I won't, I screamed. I was up against the wall now, the paperweight back in my hand. My arms tensing and flexing as I prepared to fight Peter out of the office. You must, he said. He was holding the knife again, the blade open and glistening. Come now, Jerry. Don't be stupid. As if he were my puppeteer, I lowered the paperweight. I stepped from behind the desk, my body shaking, my every move a Herculean task. Peter led me into the room. He gently tapped Dr. Mason on the shoulder, and the doctor stepped aside like an obedient puppy. Peter smiled and patted the ground. He wanted me to kneel. Come on, Jerry. Give me a chance, he smiled. I kneeled. I put my tear-stained face to the viewfinder of the auto-refractor. And what I saw was amazing. I nearly shouted. I nearly screamed. I blinked again and again, convinced I was seeing things. But no, There he was. The gray man, standing right outside the barn door. The gray man, standing right outside the barn door, his grin twisted in a never-ending smile. His eyes were making direct contact with mine, as if he were so pleased I could finally see him. The vibrant green of the rolling hills all around wrapped him up in a cozy quilt of tranquility. The dirt road, lined with the milk-white picket fence, led my eyes straight to him. I couldn't look away. His mouth opened and closed as he spoke, but no words came out. His teeth were stark white while his tongue was brown. He looked confident, his hands now on his hips, as he gave his wordless lecture to me. And I ate up every word. All this time, 15 years, and I had never had my moment. I watched as countless others put on their glasses for the first time. I never forgot their smiles, their cries, their surprise, no matter who the person was. If they were male or female, old or young, fat or thin, they all had the moment. And now, I had mine. I could finally, for the first time in my life, truly see. It really was a beautiful picture. Thank you so much for letting me share my story with you. If you want to hear more Hampton Tales, please subscribe. My full collection, Flowers That Bleed, A Gallery of Tragedies, is available now on Amazon. Click the link in the description. It means the world to me to be able to share my stories with you. Thank you. You have been listening to 2020, a story from Richard Hampton's Gallery of Tragedies, narrated by Claire Coyle.